Hey everybody, this is Amy from So Let's Make a Bag and So Let's Be Quilty Studio. I hope everybody's day is going well. We are going to go over a couple of tips and tricks for making the double zip project bag. So I have the Summer Love fabric out. And I'm going to show you the parts and pieces and then a couple of the cutting tips for you. And then we will, I'll show you how to fuse them. And then we'll do a couple of sewing tips as well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over our parts and pieces. So you should have two pieces, so you have enough in your pattern to make two project bags. They're 11 by 11, and so you have enough vinyl and zippers to make two of those. If you wanted to make one more, I think you have a little bit extra fabric, so you could make three. You would just need to add your own zippers and your own vinyl and basil. So you may have extra pieces. So do with it what you would like. So from your kit, you're going to have a long piece of zipper tape. So you're going to cut that into 12-inch pieces, and you'll need two zippers for each double zip project bag. You're going to cut your lining or your back and your main fabric into two 12 by 12-inch pieces, and also cut your basil into that as well. So, and then we are going to cut our strips. So you're going to cut one 2-inch strip, that one. And then you're going to cut one 2.5-inch strip, and then you're going to cut one 3-inch strip. And from that 3-inch strip, we are going to cut two pieces that are 3 by 11. And then from the rest of that strip, we are going to cut that down into a 2.5-inch strip, and we're going to add it to our 2.5 that we cut that's full length. And we're going to sew those together, and we're going to use those for the binding for our bag. The other 2-inch strip, you're going to cut into three 2 by 11-inch strips, and those are going to be our straight bindings for our zippers. So now that we have that together, I'm going to move over and we're going to iron. So in your bionic bag area, in your bionic bag supplies, you have a 2-yard piece of SF 101 called Shape Flex 101. And so you just need these two scraps from the leftover from the bionic bag, or take it from the bionic bag first, because you just need two 2.5 by 11-inch pieces of Shape Flex, and that's going to be for the facing for our project bag. So I'm going to center those on my the wrong side of my facing pieces, my 3 by 11-inch pieces, and we are going to iron those down and make sure we get all of our edges. So disregard the phone for the moment. That is your phone. All right. So we have our SF 101 is fused to the wrong side of our 3 by 11-inch pieces. And then we have three pieces that are 2 by 11. And we're using these as facings. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them a little bit of an iron. On the right side of the fabric, then we're going to turn them over. And we're going to use our favorite starch on here, a little bit. I use magic spray. If you have best press works as well. And then we're going to iron these wrong sides together along the longest side. And they are going to look like this. Okay, so to make the zipper binding strips, if I can speak today, we're going to open this up and we're going to fold in that edge just shy of the center and iron that down. And I like to flip mine over and do them all going in the same direction. And then we're going to fold this and give it another nice little iron. We're going to do the other two just the same way, and that will be our bindings for our zipper pockets. Let me do those really quick. So when I'm doing bindings in this way, sometimes I like to leave them so that one side is a little bit longer than the other. So I don't know if you can see it. Like that one's a little bit longer. So when I put this side away from me and this side towards me, when I do my top stitching, it will make sure that I get those both sides. So just try your best to make sure they're even. Or one side is a little bit longer than the other, and that would be the side that is going on the back side of your stitching. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so we got this. So those are all prepped for our vinyl and our zippers. We'll set those aside, we'll have those, and then we'll set those aside. And we're going to bring over our piece of double-sided fusible. I'm using Basel, but there are several different brands. But that is what is in your box. Okay, so I do put the bottom down, even though we are going to flip it over and fuse it. It's just in case it gets a little too warm, and it makes sure that you're not fusing this to your ironing surface. And I am using a Cricut Easy Press. And this little guy, I set to 305, and I'm going to do it for 10 seconds in this spot. And then I'm going to move it. And this iron is nice because it is a square base that is all iron, no steam. And it gives you a nice dry iron at even heat all the way to the edges. And it really gives you a nice uniform fusing. So okay, so I'm going to let this cool off just for a second, and then I'm going to flip it. Now I am deciding that I'm going to put my dots going this way. Fusing is very meditative. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure I get all edges, and then I'm just going to leave this for a minute and let it cool off. So when you're fusing anything, if you let it cool, that allows it to set and allows all of the fusible to activate and start to cure. So we want to let that cool. It also, if you move it too quickly when it's warm, then sometimes you'll get kind of ripples or wrinkles in your pressing, and that's probably just because you didn't let it cool completely. So we'll let that happen. We'll walk over really quick. I'm going to move my zippers. And you are going to cut a 6 by 11 inch piece of vinyl and then a 7.5 inch piece of vinyl. And again, if you want to make it a 1/4 inch over, just you have something to trim, you may do that. So there's my 6 by 11. And then here is the 7.5. You have an extra piece that you can use for making like a little ID pocket in something. So don't throw away your extra pieces. Okay, so we have our vinyl. We have this fused. So before we get to actually putting our pockets on here, we're going to throw a couple of lines of stitching on here. So you can either, I would do it on this side because it's easier to see. So you could either throw some diagonal lines or horizontal lines, or you can just go crazy and make it freeform. Either, doesn't matter which way you do it, just you want a few lines of stitching on here to give it some stability. And so I am going to show you how I do kind of a freeform method of doing my stitching. I've also seen several other people do it the same way. So we're going to walk over, and I think I need to put this up a little. So I've decided to use a variegated RFL thread to go on these. So it kind of has, if you can see on the one I already did, kind of has all of those colors in it. So I am just going to kind of start stitching and then move my piece and give it some fluid lines. So I kind of take a look and see if I'm kind of missing areas. So there's all my stitching. So I didn't make it super complicated. I just kind of added a few circular lines on there. So with that, we're going to bring that back over, and we're going to trim this down to 11 by 11. So I kind of center it on my 10 and my 11-inch mark. And I'm going to trim both of these sides. Whichever way makes you the most comfortable to trim this down is the way you should do it. And then I'm going to flip this. So again, I'm starting at 10 and going to 21, and I'm going to put the bottom of this on one of my straight lines. And trim this guy up. And then I'm going to do something I learned from by Annie, and I'm going to go all the way around my edges and seal them up. So here is the front side. So you can see that the one I did earlier. So the first thing you're going to work on is your pocket for the back side. So we're going to add one of our piece of bindings to the bottom of our 6x11-inch piece of vinyl. And then we're going to add our zipper, and then we're going to add our other piece of binding to the top. And then we're going to sew all the way around these edges, the outside edges. And that's going to end up being our back pocket. Okay, so I am going to go grab so we need this. We need our 6-inch piece, and then we need one of our zippers. Okay, I'm moving my light, and I didn't mean to, so let me put him back where he belongs. All right, so your piece of vinyl comes with a piece of paper on the back side of it, and it's just clings to it. So you can go ahead and take that off, and we don't need that. And we need one of our bindings. And we're going to start on either side, doesn't matter. And we're going to clip that, and your vinyl is going to go right up to the top of that edge. So the vinyl is going to meet all the way to the top. It's going to get snug right up against that fold. And then we have that. So we're going to top stitch right along this edge here. And top stitch is about 1/8 of an inch away from that fold. So we're going to hold on to that. We're going to back stitch a couple. And back stitch at the end. And I'm going to turn it over and make sure that I got all the edge. And then we're going to add our zipper. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our zipper pull on here. So we're going to separate our zipper. We're going to trim about 1/8 to 1/4 inch off of that edge, like that. We are going to put the rounded side of our zipper, and then if you're right-handed, you're going to put it on the left hand. That's easiest for righties. Lay it flat. and put that zipper on there. And then we're going to add, if you already have some of this tape from one of the boxes, this is the By Annie basting tape. So I put a different one in a early box, but have since found this new one from By Annie, and it is so good. So, oops, and I dropped my zipper. Okay, so we have the basting tape, and I dropped it again. All right, so we have the basting tape on, so we have the pull on the left. We have our basting tape on the bottom. And so we put the tape on there in a couple of pieces, or you can use a whole piece, and then you kind of finger press it down. And then you should be able to just grab that and pull that paper right off, which is amazing. Okay. So now we have this. And then we are just going to make sure we line up so we see the teeth of our zipper, and we make it as even as we can. When you think you have it kind of where you want it, then you just, oops, see, that wasn't where I wanted it at all. Okay, that's better. We're just going to press that down, and then that allows our zipper to stay where it needs to stay and not be moving around on us as we put this line of stitching on here. Okay. So we're going to go forward and back a few, and then we're going to edge stitch along the other edge. Okay, so now we have our zipper on one side, and then we are going to take our second piece of binding, and we are going to make sure we kind of match the distance of our other binding, and then make sure we're even also with your edge, with your other edge, and it's even with the vinyl. I don't know what we did before we had these wonder clips. They're one of the best little inventions for our craft. And see, I knew that happened. So make sure that your folded edge is cooperating. I felt like it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. Straightened out on the front. Okay, looks good. So we're going to edge stitch right next to this edge right here that's next to the zipper. Couple of back stitches, and again making sure you got all of that edge. Trim off all of your tails. Now I decided with the Summer Love, with the other ones I did it the opposite way, but with Summer Love I really liked having the most vinyl on the side with the birds because I really wanted to see all the birds. So I did it that way. And then I am lining up the bottom edge with the vinyl. So you can see the vinyl is right there. And then that's the bottom edge. So I'm going to clip these in place so it stays where it needs to stay. And then I usually clip kind of at an angle up here so those kind of stay, because you really don't want to, you can't put clips up there and you want to keep it nice and even. Okay, so I start from this top left corner and I'm going to start stitching, back stitch, and then go along the edge here, all the way down, all the way across. Make sure I pull my zipper to the center when I get close to it, and then meet that edge, and that will be your first pocket ready to go. So we're going to move this so it's out of our way. I'm using a top stitch needle in my machine. You can also use a microtex needle. I also have my Teflon foot for my machine on. That will help it not be sticky with the vinyl. So see, I'm coming up to this and I'm going to make sure that I move my zipper to the inside and go nice and slow over that zipper. Make sure I don't get any of those edges. A little back stitch. And then we're going to trim this even on both sides. Okay, so that's your back pocket on your double zip bag, double zip. And then we're going to, on this other side, we're going to put our facing on the bottom of our other piece of vinyl and then add our binding and our zipper to the bottom of this pocket. And then the top is going to be covered up with your binding, so we don't need to add a binding to the top. So I'm going to show you how I do the facing, and then all you have to do is bind it in your favorite way. So I'll show you how to do that pocket, and then I'm going to come back to this one, and I'll show you how I put the binding on. Okay, we have all the elements for our back pocket. So we have our little zipper binding right there. We have our zipper. We're going to put that slide on there. And then we have our piece of 7.5 inch by 11 inch vinyl. And our two facing pieces. All right, so there is that. So we're going to take our paper cling film guy off our vinyl, like that. And then we are going to put our right side like that on one side, and I put a couple of clips in here just to hold it, because the vinyl can get very can be very slippery. So that's pretty even, but I'm gonna move it over just a skosh. Okay, we're gonna turn this over, and then we're gonna put our right sides together, make sure we're all nice and even. And we're going to add 2 more clips. 1, 2. 1 went down. Had the dropsies tonight. Okay, so we're going to add 1. So that's nice and even. Checking. There's our other one. So we have our vinyl sandwiched in between our 2 pieces of facing, And so we're going to kind of follow that 1/4 inch-ish line. That's right there. So make sure you back stitch. Okay, so then we're going to take this side and we're going to fold it out and finger press it. Then we're going to flip. Do the same thing with the other side. Make sure we're getting it as even as we can. So I put a clip there. And a couple of clips on the bottom, so we've met these two edges together. And a clip there, and then we are going to top stitch right next to on the fabric, that line right there. Then we are going to keep stitching all the way around just to hold our raw edges together. Check out both sides, see which side you think is prettier, and that will be our right side up. Whichever side is up will be our right side. So we are going to put the binding in the same manner we did on the other one and the zipper. So we're going to use our tape, and it went somewhere. There it is. We're going to use our tape and put that on there, and it's going to end up looking like this. So we put that, and then we even up our edges, do the same thing, start at your upper left corner and go all the way around. And then we're going to add binding, and our little project bag will be complete. So let me grab binding. So in the first step, we had a 2.5 inch width of fabric piece, and then we added this other little piece to it. And then I always put them at a diagonal. It gets the bulk out of most of the strips, so you have your bulk kind of in two places, so it ends up lays a lot flatter. And then I ironed mine in half, wrong sides together. Or you could not iron. If you're doing straight binding, I iron it just because it's easier to deal with. If you are doing bias binding, then I do not iron it. Okay, so the way I do small projects like this, so I decide, because we are going to, you can hand bind, so you can sew this onto that and flip it over and hand bind, or you can machine bind the whole thing. This is just a project bag. It's a very cute project bag, but we want this to be kind of fast and fun. So what I do is I do a method where I fold over anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of the binding, so you have wrong sides together. And I'm going to sew this down, and I'm going to sew it down about 2.5, 3 inches. And if your machine starts to lag because now you're going through two pieces of vinyl, just take your stitch length up to 3 millimeters. Okay, So I did that. So I stitched 2.5 or 3 inches, and I'm going to fold this back over. I'm going to kind of put my clip where I stitched, because I'm going to leave this open because I'm going to go all the way around. And as I come back to here, I'm going to tuck the tail of the rest of it under and then sew. And that's going to give me like this nice fold over method that that makes sure that this side stays nice and even. So I put my clip where I stopped. And so I'm going to start here. I'm going to get to about 1/4 inch, and I'm going to turn this to the corner, go to the corner. If you haven't seen this before, I can always go over it with you again or make a video just on that. So you're going to fold it over so you have that 45-degree angle, and then flip it back. So this is just like you're binding your quilt. We're going to start again, about
Okay.
Hey everyone, we had to add this on because we had a few technical difficulties. So we're going to add our binding onto our double zip project bag. And I'm going to show you a method I do for small projects. I don't do this on quilts, but for bags that are small, I have my binding. So I've done the angled, I've added them at an angle, and then I have ironed it in half, wrong sides together. And I did that because on straight binding, it's perfectly acceptable to iron those bindings. So I'm going to start on the bottom of my bag, and I have ironed over a 1/2 inch of the binding, so it's going the other way. And I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to sew this down a couple of inches, and then I'm going to take it out. So I'll show you what I'm doing. So we're going to sew and backstitch and go for a couple of inches and backstitch. And then I'm going to put a clip where I've stopped stitching. So I'm going to fold this back in half again and put a clip kind of where I stopped so I know where to start. So I'm leaving this kind of opening, and when I come around the other side, I'm going to overlap the binding that's left with a raw edge, and I'm going to clip it, and then I'm going to tuck that in, that piece right there, and do a fold over binding. And this is, I think, is perfectly acceptable in small projects that that the binding is not so large, or I wouldn't do it on a quilt. So I sew to about 1/4 inch, and then I stop it, pivot, and then I go at a 45-degree angle and I backstitch. Then we're going to fold this over at a 45-degree angle. Move my hand so you can see it. And then I'm going to fold it back onto itself just as you would if you are doing a binding on a quilt. And then I'm going to start 1/8 to 1/4 inch in from the edge. And I'm going to come down. And remember, you're going through a couple of layers of vinyl. So take your stitch length up to 3.0 to make sure you can get through those layers and it doesn't get bogged down. And then again at a 45, fold it back over. Now, when you're on the top side, make sure you're mindful of where your zipper pull is so you don't run over it. That is not a crunching sound that you want in your life. Or the broken needle. third corner. Even with this Teflon foot in, you want to make sure that you pay attention to if your machine's getting bogged down in its stitches, and make sure you're moving it along. All right, so I'm going to do a couple of stitches. Going to make sure my needle's down. And see how I have my end right here? Let me make sure I clip my tails. And I am going to trim this a couple of inches into it. So let me show you that again. So this overlaps 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches. And then I'm going to fold that right into that binding. And because I've sewn down that edge, I'm not worried about this piece flying out and not getting stitched correctly. Oh, let's see. We got a little. And this is a good time to get your stiletto out. Make sure. Okay, and make sure you backstitch. See, and then when I fold this over, it makes a nice seam without having to match any edges or anything like that. So I'm going to trim anything that looks like it's going to cause an issue. Then I'm going to fold over. I'm going to grab the swap out. And I'm going to clip all around my edges, and then you're going to come back in and do one more line of stitching, and your double zip project bag will be all done. Everybody enjoy and have fun sewing. We'll talk to you later.